Viewers, thank you for joining us. We are today going to be speaking to Dr. Feodor Voitolovsky, who is the director of the Primakov Institute of World Economy and International Relations at the Russian Academy of Sciences, on the crucial topic of the Russia-Ukraine tug-of-war. Now, my first question to Dr. Feodor is, we have seen how in the last day, finally shots have been fired. It's not between Russia and Ukraine, it is rather between Ukraine and the two parts of the Ukraine that have declared their own independence and are said to be backed by separatists. My question is this the kind of escalation, is this the kind of spark that we see could be construed into a false flag operation based on which Russia could launch an invasion?
I can say that in Ukraine, in Donbass, we have got the biggest frozen conflict in Europe since the end of the Cold War. And there are two parts of this conflict. One part is government in Kiev, and the second part is self-proclaimed Lugansk and Donetsk republics. Yes, both of them are supported by Russian Federation, but it doesn't mean that there are any Russian troops there. It doesn't mean that Russia is going to invade Ukraine. I think it has become, a conventional wisdom, but at the same time, it is still a big political myth that Russia is planning a military invasion to Ukrainian territory, is planning to attack Ukrainian cities. In case Russia wanted to do so, it can do it in 2014 when Crimea has decided to join Russian Federation, and when Russia used military power to support this will of people from Crimea. But from the beginning, separatist movement in the eastern Ukraine, in Lugansk and Donetsk, has been mostly the internal Ukrainian domestic issue on which Russia had its own position. But Russia didn't invade into eastern Ukraine in 2014, so why it should do it now?
Your point taken, Dr. Feodor. I want to speak about Russia. All through the last 2 weeks, we have heard that Russia has no plans. Everyone in Moscow tells us that Russia has no plans to invade. However, there are 150,000 troops, and also on a daily basis, Russia seems to be intent on carrying out increasingly provocative military drills. Now we are hearing that tomorrow the president, that is Vladimir Putin, is going to personally oversee nuclear strategic drills. What is the intention behind doing this? Is it simply to provoke, or is it perhaps justifying the fact that NATO thinks that an invasion is imminent?
Look, Russia has very significant concerns about its national security because of growing military activity not far from Russian borders in countries which are surrounding Russia. And this military activity is growing faster and faster during last years. And the United States and their allies are investing lots of efforts into supporting anti-Russian positions in many countries which are neighboring Russia. At the same time, NATO alliance is developing its military infrastructure and building new bases and new objects which are possessing direct threats to Russian territory in new countries which have become members of North Atlantic Alliance. And Russia is very concerned with developing of NATO and with growing NATO ambitions to include all neighboring to Russia countries, including, of course, Ukraine and Georgia. And Russia is especially concerned by the possibility that someday Ukraine can become member of NATO. It will mean that NATO military infrastructure will be in 100 kilometers from Russian territory. You know, the flight time of, for example, strategic bomber from Poland to Russian territory can take about 1 hour. and the flight time from Ukrainian territory, for example, in the future, to Moscow can take less than 30 minutes. It's very significant, and it's a very significant issue for threat assessment in Russia. And of course, Russia has initiated very active drills on its own territory to demonstrate with instruments of power, of military power, how it is concerned with very specific forms of cooperation between NATO countries and Ukrainian government. Of course, Russia has presented that it can use not only diplomatic but also military language in insisting on its attitudes towards European security. Russia is asking to be not excluded but included into cooperative European security mechanisms.
All right, I see your point of view. I want to ask you then personally, as per your expertise, where do you see this going? Because we heard first the US saying that the invasion will happen on February the 16th. That date elapsed. Now we are looking at the US remaining stuck to its stand. That is that an invasion can happen at any time. When can we reach a place where US also says that this situation is diffused? We know that the Vice President of the US as well as Secretary of State Antony Blinken are both now in Europe. So what solution are we looking at?
I think there is no solution, but the only solution of this crisis is political and diplomatic. And Russian Federation from the beginning is insisting that it is ready for the dialogue, not only on Ukrainian issue, because the crisis of European security is much broader. It should, and negotiations on European security and international security with the United States and NATO countries are including also issues of strategic stability and nuclear security, also issues of conventional military security, regional and global. And Ukrainian issue is only a small part of the big framework of suggestions which Russian Federation has brought to Western leaders and has asked the United States and its allies to discuss. And from the beginning, Russia is not insisting on, for example, some sphere of influence over Ukraine. It is only asking to the West, for the West to support the hypothetical neutrality of Ukraine and its development as a neutral country, which is not possessing any threat to Western community or to Russian Federation. And I think that such neutrality and resolution of peaceful resolution of the conflict in Donbass can be the best solution for any form of this crisis. And of course, I believe that nobody is interested in military escalation and direct military clash.
Absolutely. My last question to you would be on what you last said, that no one's interested. What is the Russian people's view? Everyone, of course, is insistent that there is no plan to invade Ukraine. But if it comes to war, do the Russian people want war? Are they ready for it? Are they ready to go in all guns blazing? Or are they also the same way? They've seen enough. They know the world cannot take more war.
Look, Russians are not interested in any wars. Our country is interested in social and economic development, in economic development, in technological development, in building cooperation with European countries, with countries of Asia Pacific, in the Pacific region. We are trying to develop our investment trade capabilities. We're trying to build more peaceful world for our neighboring countries, for Russian Federation, for its population, and for global environment. And I think that nobody in Russian society are interested in conquering Ukraine, in bringing Ukraine into Russian Federation or some form of occupation. Crimea was a very specific issue because from the beginning it is mostly populated by Russians and other minorities which who didn't want to be part of Ukraine. So Donbass is a little bit different story, but there are separatists and it's another story. And whole Ukraine is, of course, especially different story.
All right. I take your point, and I hope what you say is what is going to happen, because in India, we don't want war, and we want everyone in Russia and Ukraine and NATO and Russia's allies and everyone to de-escalate. I think it's fair to say. But thank you so much, Dr. Feodor Voitolovsky, for joining us from Moscow. Thank you so much, sir, for speaking to Republic.